Episode 153 of the Interpretation Station is called To Order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing today? You will see that the Interpretation Station is back in more familiar surroundings today. Back in rainy, cold, wet Geneva. It's a far cry from what was our temporary base in Sharm el Sheikh, 27 degrees on the Red Sea. Oh yes, it was quite a time. But anyway, we are back home now, and you know what? So it's, we're going to do something a little bit different today because I must admit it is my birthday today. My 45th birthday, but I thought, a bit of fun, do an Interpretation Station episode today. And before we get started, just thought I'd show you what my kids got me for my birthday. Last year I think I got Interpretation Station memorabilia. But anyway, this year I got quite a surprise this year. Now, for those of you, it's related to a film, okay, a movie, for you Americans, if you prefer. For those of you who haven't seen the movie in question, do not be deceived into thinking when you see the piece of memorabilia that this is a kids' movie. Okay, it's really not a kids' movie. Don't let your kids anywhere near it. My kids only know about it basically because I keep going on about it all the time. For those of you who have seen the movie in question, I think you will agree with me that it is one of the greatest, one of the most hilarious movies of all time. And so here we go. Here is the piece of memorabilia in question. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this guy. They've only gone and got me Ted. They've got me Ted. Yes, you people who've seen the film, you know that scene when he gets drunk with Flash Gordon. For those of you who haven't seen it, that's all I will say. The scene when they get drunk with Flash Gordon. Oh my God. Ted, where should we put you for today's episode? You need to behave. Okay, I think we found a good position there for Ted for the rest of today's episode. Now, the hero of today's episode, guys, it's, as I said, it's a bit different today. The hero of today's episode is you, okay? You, the Interpretation Station subscriber, because I had the idea of devoting an episode to looking at some of the comments and inputs that you've given me over the 2 years of the Interpretation Station's existence, your suggestions for some solutions to various expressions used in the text that we've looked at. So I'm going to be focusing chiefly on the Russian, okay? So you can, I know some of you if you don't have Russian, you can fast forward it onto the bit when I have some French solutions and some Spanish solutions. I will put in the description box the timing so that you can skip anything that's not relevant to you. But anyway, now in particular of the viewers, there's one guy I want to single out. And speaking of bears, okay, this guy is called Arthur Beard. Arthur, I've mentioned you before on the show, I know, but this time I want to tell you why I'm mentioning, because Arthur, right, he always writes these great comments to the videos from Russian, really detailed, well thought through suggestions that he gives me. And so he did it again. He's done it a few times. So for the last Russian episode I did, episode 151, which was at the time, it was record views in a one day of the Interpretation Station's existence. So that episode seemed to go down very well. Sergei Lavrov speaking at the general debate in September. And it was actually only then overtaken by episode 152, my episode on the UN exams. That beat the record again. I don't know if this episode 153 is going to break the record again. It'd be nice, but anyway, this one's just a bit of fun. But yes, so Arthur put in some great suggestions for some of the vocab in that episode 152, and so I'm going to analyse it, and I'm going to say what I thought were good ideas that he gave me, what I would perhaps question what I would perhaps quibble with a bit, and there's some really good stuff. And then when we've looked at him, then we'll look at a couple of suggestions from the Spanish, from the French, and so on. So this is what Mr. Arthur Beard wrote to me. Arthur wrote as follows. Okay, so he said to me, thank you again for this episode. I watched and enjoyed the last few Russian episodes a little passively, did a bit more thinking this time. Wrote down a lot of good equivalents in my notebook, but here are a few quibble suggestions I thought of. So the first thing he talks about is for the word пресловутый. Okay, so this is what he's referring to here, this little bit here. Вопрос в том, будет ли этот порядок с одним гегемоном, заставляющим всех жить по своим пресловутым правилам. What he says, now I think the answer, the suggestion I gave you in the episode was dreaded. And I said to you that in the old, my go-to solution in the old days would be notorious. Пресловутый would always be notorious. And then I thought to him, to myself doing this, the question is, will that order be with one hegemon forcing everyone else to live according to their own notorious rules? Somehow notorious doesn't sound right there. And I suggested dreaded. Okay, I said they're dreaded rules. And now the thing is, there's a lot, so dreaded and notorious don't mean the same thing. Okay, just bear with me a second. So notorious kind of means famous, but in a really bad way, a notorious criminal. And dreaded, well, to dread something means to be afraid of it, obviously. I think there are a lot of occasions when the use of the word dreaded or notorious could be almost interchangeable. Just give you one simple example, the 1600s with the days of the notorious Spanish Inquisition, for example. And you could basically say the 1600s were the days of the dreaded Spanish Inquisition. So slightly different meaning, but they're pretty much interchangeable. And he said for пресловутый, I'm not sure about dreaded for пресловутый. I think it's quite sarcastic. Unless you say dreaded in a sarcastic voice, the dreaded rules. So that's a good point as well. Question is, will that order be with one hegemon forcing everyone to live according to their dreaded rules? Okay, so they are being sort of sarcastic. But then he gives me this other idea, maybe infamous is better. That's really good, Arthur, infamous. I think that's better. I think you're right. I think that's better than dreaded or notorious. And I think from now on, honestly, when I hear пресловутый, I'm going to go with infamous. So they're going to force everyone to live according to their infamous rules. That's a great suggestion, Arthur. Thank you very much. It's going to get better, by the way. He's got one absolutely amazing suggestion coming on later. Now, the next phrase is when I say beneficial only to them. Let me just find the place. Sorry, it's right next. Okay. Выгодным только ему. Okay. And I said here, beneficial only to them. Now, Arthur says here, convenient. I think beneficial here is more, the idea of выгода means they've got something to gain. So I think I prefer my original idea of beneficial. Advantageous, maybe. Advantageous only to them. I don't think convenient is quite strong enough. Then, the next one he talks about, again, all in this paragraph, actually, неугодных. Now, for me, with неугодных, my go-to tends to be dissenters, okay? Dissenting countries. It can be individuals, dissenters. So they use it in different, contexts. So here it's запугивание неугодных. So I think I said dissenters. And he says here, out of favour or undesirables. Yeah, those who think differently. Perhaps I said those who think differently. I'm not certain if I like those out of favour, undesirables. I think dissenters is a good sort of stock solution to go for. I think it's quite versatile. It covers most scenarios. Also, when you have individuals, dissenting individuals, often we use also in English dissidents. I don't think we talk about dissident countries, but we certainly talk about individuals as being dissidents. You know, you had during the Soviet times, was Andrei Sakharov, the dissidents, those who disagreed with the regime. Next one. Okay, so it was a reference to this bit here. Препятствие получению доступа к товарам первой необходимости. So I think I said preventing them from gaining access to essential goods. And he actually synthesized this very nicely with his suggestion. He just says depriving them of access to essential goods. Or I'd say even better would be denying them access to essential goods. So I think that's better than preventing them from gaining. That's 4 words, preventing them from gaining. Just saying depriving or denying them is 1 word. So I think he synthesizes that really well, which is crucial in a speech like this when the speaker will be going very quickly. Okay, then he agrees with me. Do you remember the solution I was so happy with during episode 151, okay, for when they talk about... okay, here we go. So this sentence here. Может быть, мы нарушили интересы Запада, предупреждая о неприемлемости приближения угрожающей военной инфраструктуры к нашим границам. Now, in the past, you know, whenever I've heard неприемлемость, I've always gone with, you know, the first words that come to mind are like the inadmissibility or the unacceptability, the unacceptable nature, the ugly solutions. And then it occurred to me that in English, what we would say is probably warning them against, cautioning them against moving military infrastructure to our borders. And he liked that very much, Arthur did. So that was it. So it's just worth reminding you of that solution I gave you. When you ever hear of it, you know, when мы подчеркиваем неприемлемость такого решения, you know, we warn against, we caution against such a solution. It's much quicker to say. No, it's not quite the same meaning, I guess you could argue, because maybe you could argue that the Russian delegation wants to hear this unacceptable nature or the inadmissible nature. But I think if you're in a hurry, if you're struggling to keep up, and then if you just throw that in, I think I think they'd give you the benefit of the doubt, to be honest, if they hear caution against, warn against. Next expression, недоговороспособность. Okay, here it is. Недоговороспособность западных стран. And I think I said here the Western countries are deal breakers. Whenever I hear недоговороспособность, that's the first thing that really comes to mind. Deal breakers. They are deal breakers. They renege on their deals. There's also if you want to get really sort of bureaucratic, I think you could say the contractual incapacity. Okay, the contractual incapacity. So what he suggests here was intransigence. I don't think it's quite the same thing. I mean, intransigence, it's more the idea of, you know, stubbornness. They won't give an inch over something. This is more their inability to follow through on things that they've agreed to. So I would sort of, with недоговороспособность, I would really have in mind the idea of deal breaking, of contractual capacity or incapacity. Another suggestion Arthur gives me for this word высокомерно, which is a word that the Russians often use when talking about the West, and it was this. It's a bit here. Последнее предложение необходимо сделать этот принцип юридически обязывающим мы внесли в декабре 2021 году, на что получили высокомерный отказ. Now, what I'd said here for высокомерный отказ was like, just to use like a verb in English, it was brushed away. I mean, that idea in English, obviously you'll have a better feeling for this than native speakers, you know, to brush was brushed aside, brushed away, encapsulates within it already that idea of высокомерно, the kind of arrogantly rejected. It's one of those, you know, one of those verbs in English, as I say, that can synthesize, that carries already with it a sort of this idea of the adverb. But if you want to actually have a like for like solution, sometimes you can't come up with those solutions. I'm trying to put those solutions into your head to give you a chance, to put those solutions somewhere into your orbit so that maybe one day you will be able to grab them. But yeah, sure. So if you need a like for like solution for Visakamierna, I think I maybe gave you arrogantly. He said haughtily rejected. Another idea I had was sanctimoniously rejected, condescendingly. So I think there's another statement that someone else has got a suggestion for in another statement where again they use Visakamierna. Maybe I'll come back to it. Moving on. Okay, so the penultimate suggestion he had was this for down here. Реализации в инструменте реализации своих корыстных интересов. Now, for the word корыстный, so he suggests here selfish. Okay, so what I'd actually given you when in the episode, I think I said ulterior motives or hidden agendas. Now, you often hear about корыстные цели. Okay. So this is very similar, I think, корыстных интересов. I think it's almost identical to корыстных цели. And I remember with that expression, to be honest, I learnt the solution, if you like, for that expression back in 2009 when I came and did the UN internship in the summer from my teacher back then, Lynn Visson, former UN staffer. And I always thought it was great, just the package, either just a hidden agenda or ulterior motives. And to be honest, I wouldn't play around with that, Arthur. I would just go for those two. Don't worry about maybe in a different context, in a literature, I don't know, selfish might be the answer. But I think when the politicians, when it's talking about politics and they're talking about корыстных интересов, корыстных целей, I think. For me, I'm not going to change that. It's going to be the ulterior motives or hidden agendas for me. Now, the final suggestion that Arthur has is the one. It's a mic drop moment. It's fucking outstanding. When I read it, I thought, oh my god, he's really got it. So here, Arthur, this is the mic. I would drop this mic, but I better not because this was my birthday present last year. So it wouldn't be a good thing if I dropped that mic. So, where is it? Okay, there are two examples of it actually. So here is the first one. Вашингтон возвел себя чуть ли не в ранг посланника Господа Бога на земле. Okay, so I'm talking specifically возвести себя. And I suggested declared themselves, proclaimed themselves. And then the same expression is used later on as well. Отказались признать результаты госпереворота, как его организаторы возвели в ранг национальных героев нацистских приспешников, причастных к зверским бла-бла. Возвели в ранг. And again I gave you declared themselves, proclaimed themselves. Well, Arthur, wherever you may be, sir, please stand up, take a bow. So his solution, Arthur's solution is... anoint themselves. Self-anointed. I mean, I think I need to take a bow. Arthur, that is seriously brilliant. They anointed themselves. Where are we? The first example. Washington basically anointed itself the messenger of God. Okay, that's outstanding. And in the second example, they'd anointed them national heroes. Okay, that whole idea of being self-anointed, it's great. That's a really, really good solution. That is the one I am going to use from now on. Возвели в ранг. That's outstanding. Okay, self-anointed, anoint themselves. Okay, then he also mentions very quickly, I was also wondering whether you could give some give tips about how to do fast, dense speeches without the text in front of you. I've been having to do that quite a bit recently. Try to do the speech without the text before watching the video. Find it impossible to follow the word order and be as precise as you are when following the text. It went relatively well, I thought, but there was a lot of simplifying and generalizing, a few bits skipped. Interested in finding out how you go about it. Well, to be honest, Arthur, all my episodes really that I do about Russian, I really do focus on showing you the best way of synthesizing these texts, because you have to, you can't do them word for word, and you have to look at all those opportunities you can to cut stuff out, and that's what all my episodes, so watch all the other episodes. But look, just off the top of my head, if I give you 5 quick tips. Okay, number 1 would be cut all the fat. Anytime the speaker goes, whatever, уважаемый председатель or whatever, уважаемые коллеги, just drop that, okay, for a start. Just leave that stuff out. That's one thing. 2, go for all the acronyms that you can lay your hands on. Use your acronyms, all right? 3, cut all the unnecessary fat in terms of, like when they talk Российская Федерация, okay? Just, you don't need to say federation every time. Just cut that out. Russia, and then if you're really behind, just we, okay? We don't we too much, but it's a legitimate tactic. That's 3. 4th, obviously drop if things are getting really tight. Start dropping adjectives and adverbs, okay? They are expendable, okay? Generally, adjectives and adverbs. So that's the first sort of kind of word, you want to be looking at dropping. And a 5th tip I could perhaps give you is any of these sentences that start with считаем, okay? считаем необходимым. We believe it's necessary. We think it's necessary. Those things are kind of implicit. The we think, it's kind of implicit. So if you say something, we believe that it's necessary to do blah, 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 just drop the we believe. It's necessary to do this. The fact the guy is saying it makes it implicit that he believes it, okay? So look to drop those things, okay? That's another sort of little shortcut you can do. But honestly, just watch these other videos also for these tougher constructions. Watch the prying apart Russian butt clenchers. I look into a bit more detail into how you tackle the long compound sentences. If you haven't watched those episodes, I'll put links up to them. And that would be just very, very quickly, just 5 quick tips on how to get through these tough long statements more easily. But as I say, I in pretty much all my episodes, that's what I try and focus on. So that is Arthur for you. That's great, Arthur. Thank you very much then for your input, and keep them coming. Now, just also in the same language while we're at it, just quickly sticking to Russian. So this was a suggestion from Catherine6500. Do you know who you are? Okay. And you had a suggestion for the word последователи. Okay, so I'm looking here. Такая беспринципность не удивляет. Только страны ЕС, США их последователи считают возможным высокомерно учить. And look, we have this высокомерно coming up again, so it's just this interesting sentence. So, Catherine 6500 gave me the suggestion for последователи, disciples. Now, I think I said followers, only the US and their followers. So you said disciples. I quite like that, because again, I think it's quite sort of sarcastic and quite a sarcastic tone. It's quite critical of what the US and the EU do. So, and they're disciples. So again, I think that could work. They're acolytes, they're adherents. Those are good solutions there, okay? And высокомерно учить. This is an example again where you have the adverb and the adjective. And I think, when you say in English that they lecture, only they think it's possible to lecture others about how they should organize their states, or lecture other states. So I don't think that. I think that lecture again encapsulates the idea of высокомерно. So just to show you another example, these words like brush aside, lecture. It's good to have them again in your orbit, going around your brain. I mean, if they don't come to you in the moment, it's always good to have a couple of like-for-like solutions for высокомерно, such as like condescendingly, haughtily, arrogantly. Okay, that's enough for the Russian. Next person I want to turn to, this was a great solution that was given to me. Okay, episode 137. So this is for French now. Okay, so this was from episode 137, and this was a suggestion I received from Lucy Godding, Big shout out to you, Lucy. And it was for the expression here, leur droit à disposer librement. Can I bring this up? I can't seem to highlight it, never mind. So it's here. Leur droit à disposer librement de leur corps. Now, I think I'd said in the original, their right to... I think I said something quite mundane, like to decide what to do with their own body. Didn't really trip off the tongue. I knew there was perhaps something better. And the idea that Lucy Godding gave me was to talk about agency, to have agency over their own bodies. And I thought that was really, really good. Disposer librement de leur corps. Their right to have agency over their own body. Excellent. Often, you'll also, you'll hear delegations will talk about when talking about countries to be able to se disposer à eux-mêmes. So when they talk about that, that's always to do with self-determination. Okay, their right to a country's right à disposer d'eux-mêmes. That means self-determination. But I think in this context, disposer librement de leur corps, I think that's an excellent solution from Lucy, to have agency over their own bodies. That's a very, I think, quite in vogue expression these days. People having agency in a matter. Anyway, great solution there. Okay, next episode. Turning then to episode 145. I think this was on Guinea, and this was a suggestion from Sterling. Sterling's a big fan of the show, I know. Big shout out to you, Sterling. And I thought I'd slip in a very good suggestion that you gave to me the other day. So he's talking here about, la restructuration des organes chargés de l'organisation du procès, à savoir le comité de pilotage. Okay, you see here? Comité de pilotage. And I think I just said the pilot committee. Okay. Sterling gave me a good idea, though, which was a steering committee. So I thought that's a round of applause for Sterling there. Steering committee, very good. And then just to finish off with a couple of contributions for Spanish texts. Episode 19, now this is going back in history a bit. Okay, so hopefully you can see on the screen here again. This was from Camilla, Camilla Oyen, who I met, of course, when I did my episode with the Argentinian Translators Association. So a big shout out to you, Camilla. I hope you're a bit happier after Argentina's performance yesterday. Saudi Arabia wasn't too good, but you're a bit better against Mexico yesterday, huh? So she had a really good idea here for por antonomasia. Okay, so this was in episode 19, was the quiz that I did. I should do more quizzes, perhaps. And I'd give the example: la libertad de prensa es la piedra angular por antonomasia de un país exitoso. And the solution I'd given you at the time was par excellence. Okay, the cornerstone par excellence of a successful country. And this very good solution that she gave me for par antonomasia was quintessential. So that's a very good solution for par antonomasia. That works generally very well, I think. And finally, we have from episode 121. So this was from episode 121. It was again by Argentina. And I think Natalia is also Argentinian. So big shout out to you as well, Natalia. And she gave me a couple of really good, just general knowledge pointers, really, from this text. And she said, okay, hello, Roland, it's Natalia. We met before. You nailed this episode. Everything. I nailed the episode. Excellent, thank you. Everything you said and assumed was on point. Well, I'd do my best, you know. I'd like to add a couple of observations to make the Argentine context a little bit clearer. Doble indemnización refers to severance payment. The idea is to provide a double severance payment if and when workers are fired during the pandemic. So just for the context, let's have a look at the... So the delegation is basically listing everything that the Argentinian government had done to sort of mitigate the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. And they list all these measures they've taken. So these things they've created, okay? El gobierno nacional llevó adelante políticas económicas inéditas. And then we go down here. La creación de la tarjeta alimentar, asistencia de emergencia al trabajo y a la producción, la doble indemnización. Now, I think I'd said double compensation. I think I'd played safe at the time because I wasn't certain myself what they were referring to. And if you're not certain with something, then obviously your best solution is just to play it very neutral, okay? Go with a word that's very non-committal. And so I said, okay, compensation. But so you see Natalia then here explains to us what doble indemnización actually is. It's like to do with severance payment when someone loses their job. The idea was that they would have a double payment, okay? Instead of usually just a one-off payment, this would be double. Then we have trabajadores de casas particulares. Do not refer to people who work in hotels or hostels, but people who provide cleaning and home care services for individual private households. However, domestic workers is a fine solution. So again, just to give you the context, it's again listing this thing here. Trabajadores de la economía informal, personas desocupadas, trabajadores de casas particulares. I thought casa particular was some kind of hotel or hostel, but it's not. So this is actually for individual private households. So anyway, domestic workers, it's quite a catch-all term and it seems to fit well. Then this was another interesting expression. Monotributistas is exactly what you said, but they're not freelancers as such. I think I'd said freelancers. The main distinction between a monotributista and any other income earner is actually better addressed by use of the term self-employed, which describes more accurately the condition of a monotributista. So perhaps you want to just say self-employed people is again perhaps more non-committal than calling them freelancers. Again, it's in this list of workers. Trabajadores de la economía informal, personas desocupadas, trabajadores de casas particulares, monotributistas, so the self-employed people. So some really good suggestions there for some of these internal Argentinian sort of institutions, the sort of nomenclature they use. And I guess that nomenclature is probably used a lot in other Latin American countries also. So that's your lot. So some really good, just a handful of some of the really good suggestions that I've received recently that I wanted to share with you. If you want me to give you a shout out, give me more comments. Go and watch some more Interpretation Station episodes. Don't be shy. Please give me your suggestions as well. It's always great to have more ideas. And then you see some of this stuff I'm going to use. Arthur's suggestions. Brilliant. Oh man, self-anointed. It's great. Quintessential for por antonomasia. So it really gets you thinking. So please do feel free to send in your comments. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do smash the like button. Please do remember to subscribe. We've really picked up a lot of subscribers in the last month. I've added about 100 new subscribers. So come on, push me up to 2,000. Get me for 2,000. It's my birthday. Come on, man. Get me up to 2,000. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Comment. Keep watching. And that's all that needs to be said. I think now I need to go and spend some time with the family. My birthday. I need to have my cake, blow out the candles, all that crap. All that remains to be said from me and from my sidekick from today's episode. Yes, Ted. Bye, Ted. Say bye. There you go. Is that episode 153 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station. We hope you